Hey everybody, welcome back. We're doing another Marvel Future Revolution video. In this one, we are going to do a Wolverine skills and gear breakdown. We like to do these when characters come out, go through some of it a little bit in detail. We're working towards all the build stuff. This is part of that process, and I like to share some of that with you along the way. So we're gonna go in-game, look at what he's got, definitely talk about some of the keys in forming a good build here so that while you're either leveling him or learning him or whatever you might be doing, hopefully you'll find this helpful. If it is, maybe consider hammering down that like button. I don't know. Let's check it out.
Bring me WolverThor!
All right, so the way we like to look at these is we call these lines. This is like line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the last two, and then within each one of these I like to go A, B, C, D. So whenever you hear me say like 1A or 2B or 3D or something like that, that's what I'm referring to. So he's got, first off, let's talk about classes. He's got 3 classes. He's got Swift Strike. You can see that right up here, where it's just like that's that class. He's also got Adamantium Claws. He's also got, I think it's in 4 or is it 3? Yeah, and he's also got Evolved Hunter. Those are the 3 classes you'll see as we go through here. Now, each line, they're typically all the same. Swift Strike, and Swift Strike. So on occasion, some characters aren't like that. I think maybe Star-Lord and maybe Storm. I don't remember. I have to check, but typically that is you'll get the same thing across the line, so that way you know when you're picking gear, etc., everything across there is good. So you got Swift Strike once, Adamantium Claws once, Evolved Hunter once. Okay, Swift Strike, Evolved Hunter twice, Adamantium Claws. So each one of them's got it twice. You got Adamantium Claws 3 times and Swift Strike 3 times. So Swift Strike has 3 different lines you could have. Adamantium Claws 3 different times. Evolved Hunter only 2. That's something you want to consider or potentially consider when you are looking at your gear, because when you pick your regional and or your special gear, it's going to go towards the certain number of lines. If you picked Evolved Hunter, which is Eyes of Osiris or Sakaar, if I remember right, you're going to get 2 lines. If you pick one of the other ones, you could get 3 lines. Now that might matter, it might not. That's part of when you start to play with the skills and, testing and all that sort of thing. So now, not just that, but another high level thing that's important, and any WoW players out here, I want you to think of it this way. If you're familiar with a Feral Druid, there was a Mangle, which was sort of a debuff, and then there was a rip and a rake, which basically put on 2 different bleeds. So the idea is you always wanted to have the Mangle up, you always wanted to have your rip up, and you always wanted to have your rake up, and you'd always refresh those things as much as you can. There is a very similar sort of dynamic in here, with the exception of it can be very difficult to keep them up all the time. There's one, Rupture, which you'd like to have up as much as humanly possible if you can, but because it stacks up to 15, but it's a short duration of 5 seconds. And when you hit, it does refresh that, but it can easily fall off. So you got to think about that. You've also got your Lacerate. Lacerate lasts for 7 seconds. So that's certainly nice too, but that is more of a, maybe a dot type thing. So to me, maybe you could put that, you definitely want to have it after Rupture so it hits harder. But there's another aspect with one Swift Strike ability, you can mark your target, which also does a 30%, it's another damage modifier. So how you line those up could potentially matter. And not just that, but it's not certainly obvious which order you want to put it in, because depending what skills you might choose, if you think, oh, well, I obviously want to do this debuff, and then I want to do, I want to put this on them because, the next hit I want to do wants to be bigger. Well, by the time you get to your 3rd hit, if the first one's fallen off, well, then that order doesn't matter, right? So that's the sort of thing you want to think about when you're going through this. I wanted to mention that specifically with Wolverine because I do find it to be pretty important. So as we go through these skills, I'm not going to go crazy through them. I am going to give you a general opinion on them. I have a spreadsheet that I'm also putting together that's going to help sort of lead me towards where I think a good build is going to be for this guy. Again, I always preface by saying to people, everybody wants to build like day one. Don't stress about that, because look, it's going to take some testing. If you're a whale or a kraken who wants to just put stuff in it, then okay, but anybody who maybe is a cheaper to play player or free to play, you got to be patient. So in this line 1, you're looking at A versus B here. Again, both swift strikes. The cooldown on A is much lower. It's about 12 seconds. The stamina is a little bit lower. And when you look at that, they're both, and all of line 1 is marking your target. Okay. It's the only skill in all of this that does that. Okay. So you want to keep that in mind. You can see the little Wolverine heads that are popping up in those images. That's the marked target. So, and what marked target does is, like I mentioned before, it's an additional 30% if the attack is made within 5 seconds, though. Yeah. Okay. So it is within 5 seconds. I think, yeah. So the target mark is 5 seconds. It's the dodging that somebody can't do for 3 seconds. So it's actually pretty nice because you mark them, they can't dodge, you hit them, right? So that way it's there and it's like, sorry, have fun with that. So the one on the left hits for 341 damage. The one on the right's 521. When I look at that, it's kind of like, all right, the one on the right is just a little bit higher for almost a little less than double damage. So the increase there is okay. So to me, when I'm looking at that, it's all about what can land properly. Looking at C, it's about the same as 1. This is Impelling Kick. A little bit more cooldown, a little bit more stam for actually less damage. So I honestly, this is weird to me. I don't know why I'd do more of that and get less damage. The only reason I would is if the ability on the right is actually able to hit harder. So I would maybe rule that one out, or not harder, but it's easier to land. Otherwise, I'd probably rule that one out. And then when you're looking at 1D, it's clearly the best of the bunch if you're looking at pure percentages, but you got double the cooldown and almost double the stam, and it's what is that, 600, another 120, so it's about double. So everything is about double to this. So this is going to be a situation where you're like, okay, well, what do I want to do here? Do I want to constantly mark, be able to do, because with the right you can get marks out twice as much as the one on the left. You can get on this one here, you can get marks out twice as fast as the one on the right. And that might be where you decide what to do there, because overall the damage is, while the one on the left is lower, the one on the right only can happen, half as often. So they're about the same. Looking at line 2, Scarring Whirlwind, Fatal Pull. These are all Adamantium Claws. So the one on the left, great cooldown, great stamina. This is where you put Rupture out. Rupture is something that you put, it stacks up, it lowers the defense by a certain percentage per stack. You want to have this up as much as possible. This is like the Mangle concept for all those WoW players out there. Now, when you look at this, the one on the left is 210 damage, and the one on the right is 750. And the one on the right is roughly 3 times as, it costs 3 times as much to use cooldown and stamina wise. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going, all right, well, the damage, is it 3 times as strong? I'm like, not quite. Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's 6. It's more. Okay, so maybe I do use the one on the right. Now, again, you're talking about Rupture. It's like, well, unless the one on the right gives me 15 stacks every time, and the one on the left, if I use it 3 times, then I wouldn't want to use the one on the left. Okay, or the one on the right. It's like it needs to give way more Rupture stacks. And does it land? You can see turns and spins. Well, if it doesn't stick there, then that's a problem. All right. So same concept with this one. I love the animation on the one on the right. I think it's super cool. It hits really hard. Again, you got to look at how many stacks of Rupture it gets. This is about 3 times as much, both cooldown and stam. So do I get 3 times the amount of stacks? That's something we're going to have to analyze, look at, but the damage here is way, way higher. So it's definitely, if the one on the right, you can get what you need to there, I would definitely use the one on the right. But again, I always say, does it land? Because if it doesn't land, then it doesn't matter. So the one on the right here, this is, again, about 4 times as much as far as cost, except for stam. It's 3 times as much stam. Again, you're rupturing a little bit. It's the guard damage here. The damage is about 3 times as much as well. So it's like you're just weighing if you want to get the guard break out of this. But additionally, I mean, that's a long animation. Like, is somebody going to stand there for that in PvP? Or even your bosses, are they going to stand there and take that? That's a big problem for some of these abilities that you always got to weigh in on. All right, line 3, Evolved Hunter. This is the first line we're looking at this. So the one on the left, Untouchable. It's 12 second cooldown, 18 second stam, 640 damage. You look at the one on the right, It's what, you know, 2 to 3 times more, not quite as much stam. It's not that much stam, but it's just about double the damage. So, you know, it could be great. Now you can see the animation on the one on the right looks like it's a through twice. Now, if he tracks through that, ooh, that's pretty sexy. Not gonna lie. But again, that cooldown is crazy long. So, but I do like the, and by the way, the one on, these are untargetables. So that's an important thing to consider. That tends to, you know, weigh pretty heavily when people are talking about like PvP stuff. But again, does it land? That's the key part. The one on the right, also, let's see, that's over double the cooldown, about double the stam, and not quite double. It's nowhere near double. It's almost the same damage. So why would I do the one on the right? The only reason you'd ever consider doing that is if he's tracking around and you know it's going to land. You know, and like, okay, but like for that much more cooldown and stamina, I'd probably guessing that this one is not going to be something you're going to want to use. And then last but not least on this one is the capture prey. I've already tested this one out. While it's double the damage, I need to look at it in a PvP type situation, but he doesn't, if things don't stand still like what this picture shows. Nothing does that. It's super cool to look at. I love seeing it, but nothing will ever stand like that. So unless there's a gigantic army of mobs that you need to hit and go through, the one on the right, while amazing damage wise, I'm not sure it's going to be all that exciting. All right, now we're on line 4, which is Intrepid Dash. So this is again a Swift Strike. Your second levels of Swift Strike here. The one on the left, Vertical Slash. 13 second cooldown, 20 stam. The one on the right is about the same. You look at the damage, they're about the same. This is both of them, and this whole line does the laceration effect. So that's one thing to remember here is line 4 is the only line that does the laceration effect. So more than likely you're going to want to find something in this line in your build to make sure to do that. And again, lacerate, it does a dot, it decreases HP recovery, and decreases attack. So it's really about getting the dot out there, but it's a pretty nice dot, so you want to hit it. So anyway, when you're looking at this, you know, there's some guard breaks are the same. So it's like, okay, the damage is about the same. So it just comes down to, you know, what's easiest to land. That's it. Which one are we going to use for easiest to land? Now, if you look at the one on the right here, Laceration Wheel, again, love the animation. Cooldown and stamina is about the same. The damage is less. And it's like, okay, laceration effects. So it's really going to be about like, is this landing? Does this track someone? If someone can walk out of this quickly and they don't take the main damage, who cares, right? All right, and then the last laceration effect is this Slashing Tornado. Very similar. You can see it's like, well, you know, that's a long animation. Do I need to land the whole thing to do that? Now, this is about twice the cooldown here. A little less than twice the cooldown and way less than twice the stam, but almost a little less than twice the damage. So if this one on the right can actually pull this off pretty well, you might want to consider that given how much damage it does. Because, I mean, that is a really, really nice damage boost for all of them. All right, line 5. These are your second set of Evolved Hunters. The first one here, Drill Step on the left. It's about the same stam and cooldown as the one on the right, a little bit lower. The damage is actually a little bit higher on the one on the left, Drill Step, than it was on the one on the right, which is Descending Slash. Drill Step, it hits and it's done. The one on the right, jumps, slash, slash, slash. There's a chance that you might not get all that. And if I think this might be the one that I was talking to Rob, server leader, about, is that if you kill something on that first jump, that he might keep doing it over and over, which could be sort of interesting, actually. So, you know, again, common theme here is which one actually lands. Now, the one on the right here, way more damage. Again, less than half the cooldown, but a ton of stam. And if you can't land, that's a slow moving ability. It's like, all right, can you hit that? And I mean, do you need to hit them both times to get all of the damage? That might not work very well. Double Pierce, if you can get it, if something's standing still. And then last but not least, the Predator Pierce. This might be the other jump one that I was talking about with Rob. I can't remember which one it was. Again, this one's about equally double. Definitely more than double the damage. But is it going to land? Jump, jump, slash. Okay, well, yeah, it knocks down when it lands, but it doesn't knock down in PvP. It's not going to knock down against the boss. And so therefore that knockdown is not going to be relevant to you if the person's not standing there, and therefore should be factored in when you're considering your builds. All right. Our next adamantium slice, this is what, the line 6. So the one on the left, air slice 6A, super short cooldown. Really like that. Now, again, it's going through, air there. It's like, can that actually land? Like, can someone easily walk out of that? It's a low damage. If that's the case, don't even consider this skill at all. Now, it ruptures, but if it doesn't land, who cares? It doesn't matter. The one on the right, air rupture, looks like it's a little bit quicker. It moves, I don't know, but then there's two, it goes through twice. It's about double the cooldown and stamina. It is over double the damage. Most important thing here is, are the ruptures landing here? Are they stacking? How many stacks are there, one versus the other? That is beyond critical, okay? That's one thing we'll definitely test as well. All right, charged air slice. That one moves slow as molasses, as you can see. Right now, it's about double, a little over double the cooldown, a little less than double the stam. It's definitely over double the damage. Same concept. Well, how many rupture stacks do you get? Is it landing? Because I'm pretty sure everything in the game is going to move away from that. But it does look like it's a gigantic range there. So maybe if you can do it but it's also a long animation. It looks like he's taking a while. Like, look at this. Boo, 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 boo. It's like, okay, so if somebody sees him doing that, they might get out of the way. All right, now this one on the right is very interesting. He jumps up in the air. It's about 3 times as much cooldown and stam. It's a little less than 3 times the damage. Same concept. Is this gonna land? Is it gonna do something? Now, I will say one of the things I worry most about Wolverine is his aerial abilities, or his abilities to attack people in the air. Is this one of those where maybe he'll go chase somebody up in there and go attack them? Because that'd be sweet. Aerial Annihilator, I mean, that I could be all about that. So if this helps you stack that rupture against flying opponents, and it stacks well with the other ones, yeah, that might be a good one to land in. So, all right, line 7 here. All right, we've got B loaded up here, but let's change it just so we can stay consistent here. All right, so the one on the left, battle preparation. So 7A, this one, so this whole line, while it's adamantium claws, it's all buffs, right? So you got to think about what you want to do here. There are some things that apparently do buff, different things like all gauge, etc. So they're all long cooldown. They're all a lot of stamina. So it's really going to be about here. If you choose this line, do some of these buffs do something you want. Now, the one on the left, it stacks 1 additional rupture. That could be critical for making sure you get to that max rupture count and keeping it there. Now, my question is like, if it just does +1, and I'm already trying to keep it at that 15, I don't need the +1 if it's falling off quickly. I won't care because it falls off too quickly, so it might be a wasted buff, but it also gives you about 15% additional crit damage for 12 seconds, which isn't too bad. I wish both of those would be a little bit better. I wish maybe it extended the duration of rupture as well, of adding an additional stack, like maybe gave it an extra 2 seconds or something. I would almost guarantee you'd use battle prep at that point. Right now, it's like, I don't know. The one on the right, more elbows, gives you additional attack and alt gauge by 15%. This right here, depending on your build, you might really want to go into that. The attack by itself is amazing. The next one, infinite regeneration, a long cooldown, long stamina, recovers HP by 20% for 8 seconds. Pretty good. You know what I mean? If you get a good alt gauge going and you got this as well that you're dropping every 36 seconds and you got your alt gauge in between, maybe this helps. It also removes status effects and becomes immune. I don't see myself using this too much, but we'll see. It's just the cooldown and the stamina on it seems too long. The last one in here, the metal charge, it decreases all damage received by, when you max it out, about 13%, increases movement speed by 12. You're really only going to use this in a PvP situation. I don't know if I frankly even like it for that. Damage received by 13%, only for 12 seconds. So you've still got what, 20-ish, 21 seconds that you're not, benefiting from that. I don't know. I mean, that one, and even this HP recovery one, this is also a PvP only. And then, so you're really looking at these first two is maybe to be both. I don't know. I could see the first two being PvE and PvP, but we'll see. The one on the left, I'm still torn on where I land with the ruptures and stuff on PvP. All right, so let's change that one as well. So, all right, so we've got A here. All right, so this is our last but not least Swift Strike skill. This is line 8. So 19 second cooldown, 23 second stam. You're invincible. This is the only true iframe that he has in his entire build. Okay, it's not bad. It's 497% damage before he attacks. The one on the right, it converts, and by the way, this whole line is about like some sort of weird deflection or not taking damage. So you can see on the one on the right, converts 500% of lost HP into additional damage. Okay, so 500% of lost HP. So depending what you're getting hit for, 500% added damage. This could be a gigantic hit if you know when to use it. PvE or PvP. You know when someone's about to electrocute you, pop, go hit. You know, again, it's got to track. If it doesn't track, forget about it. It's terrible. But again, the stam and the cooldown about the same. The damage a little bit more on the one on the right. All right, next one up, guard deflection. Very similar. A little bit more cooldown, a little bit more stam. Reflects damage equal to 286% attack for 3 seconds when attacked. It decreases all damage received by 75%. So you basically take a guard stance. It reflects the damage equal to 280. I'm not sure how that modifier is going to work. So it's like you take, 10k damage and it multiplies it by 286% of the attack of what you got. I don't know, but again, I could see this hitting really hard if you properly time it. And again, does it track? You can see he goes right after he deflects it, and he hits a couple times. So if you deflect, you do that, electrocute, do that. Or, you see electrocute coming. Holy cow. You see that, I forget the Star-Lord one with the iframe. I'm already forgetting the name of it. Comment below if you don't mind. If any of this is helping you, appreciate any comments or subscribes, like buttons. And then the last but not least in this line, Dodge Slicer. It's a little bit less cooldown, a little bit less stam. It increases dodge rate for 120% for 1.2 seconds. A little bit of damage. I don't know if I really like this skill, frankly. That percent dodge rate for that short amount of time, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't think, even if it tracks well, I don't know if I'm going to really be into that one. So then you've got the basic and the, by the way, note that the basic stacks ruptures effects. So you need to be smart about when you're using basic, and that might be something that's actually really important. You want to keep rupture going. And then the Berserker skill, which is friggin' amazing. Recovers 20% of HP for 4 seconds, increased attack percentage, movement speed for 12 seconds, guard break immunity for 12 seconds, becomes immune to debuffs and immobility for 12 seconds, guard disable immune, activates Hot Claws, which decreases the remaining cooldown by 20% when attacking. So like this thing is just sick. Increases damage dealt to marked targets by 20%. So you get that marked target. Like you better have that marked target ready. I'm telling you right now, because it's stack upon stack. Like that is just, you got to get stuff going like that. So the last piece of this that we want to sort of talk about a little bit is the gear. So look, the different gear sets that we have here. I've got a spreadsheet off to the side. Basically, you've got Eyes of Osiris for the Evolved Hunter, as well as Sakaar. Do you want to do Evolved Hunter? That's where some untargetables are. Maybe you want to consider that. The Rote and Dark Domain and Midgardia are the Adamantium Claws. Is that what you want to do? Maybe that's where you get a lot of the rupture stuff in. So, and you maybe want to stack that. But again, can you stack that in PvP? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's if you're not gaining the damage from it and stacking from it, then you might not want to do that. And then Steampunk, which is Swift Strike, as well as Hydra and Xanderth. We talked about Swift Strike being critical for the marked targets. It definitely needs to be. But again, like, do you want to lean into that gear if there's three abilities there, or 3 lines of abilities? But is that what you want to do? So you can New Stark ultimate skill. Yeah, that'll increase the damage of that when you're using it. I don't know if I'd really go that route. Xanderth, we talked about that with the Swift Strike. Xanderth gives the crit damage. I don't think that's necessarily bad yet, or at this point. Adamantium Claws with Midgardia's crit damage. The Dark Domain is defense pierce. You just got to weigh, depending on what your stats are, which one it might be harder to get. I think crit damage is likely the one that's probably harder to get for him. Again, Adamantium Claws seems good. It's rupture. Sakaar, we talked about this, is the one that people are pairing with Eyes of Osiris for the untargetable skills. I will say that generally speaking, you don't have to go for untargetables for your gear class, because they're doing what they need to do if you're mainly trying to be untargeted. So it's all about if those skills land and they hit hard. Let's see here. And then Hydra Empire, we talked about that before. It's just defense pierce as opposed to crit damage. Same thing with Dark Domain. And then we've got, I'll end with, before we go to Savage Shadowlands. So Steampunk, again, Swift Strike and Intrepid Dash. Intrepid Dash is the, that is line 4. That's where you're lacerating. So if you really love that lacerate and really think you can land that a lot and the ability you use, that's where you'd go into Steampunk and just saying you really heavily lean into that one. Rise of the East. This is Scarring Whirlwind and Adamantium Claws. This is line 2. This is one of the Rupture abilities. Same concept. You know, if you're going to lean into this, better make sure that that ability is always going to land and hits hard. Eyes of Osiris, Forward Momentum, and Evolved Hunter class. That's line 5. Same concept. If you're going to use this, and only 2 of the skills in that one are untargetable. 2 of them don't say that they are. So of those 2, are you going to want to use that? You know, one of them, as I'm looking at the numbers here, is hit quite a bit harder. But all of this line, you know, is pretty good as far as damage conversion to cooldown and stam. So last one on this that I want to touch on is Savage Shadowlands. This actually could be good for everything. It's weird to say that, but it's Evolved Hunter class, which again is that untarget set. You get +6 from it to start versus like the +7's a little bit lower, and you don't get a class specific, but you get HP recovery additional and crit rate, which are 2 stats that might be, well, HP recovery you can get pretty easily for him, but crit rate might not be. But you might want a bunch of HP recovery because he has a specialization that takes HP recovery into attack, similar to like some of the other characters in the game. So longer video, but I like to do sort of a deeper dive breakdown on these. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm currently loving Wolverine. I think he's awesome. I really like the theory crafting behind a lot of the stuff that he's got going. He is just, I mean, obviously I am a complete and utter fanboy with this guy, but I like what they did with him. I think the builds are awesome. I think the concepts behind them are awesome. I'm interested to see the further debate about what people think the best gear are. Let me know in the comments below what your build you think you're going to lean towards, what gear you think are the best. If any of this helped you, please consider hammering down or slashing that like button, and shout out to Wolverine, hammer down, or notification bell. You guys know the drill. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.